There's a moment that happens to a lot of people somewhere in their mid-30s. You're not broke. You're not struggling in the way your parents might have. You've got a steady paycheck, a 401k you contribute to, maybe a savings account with a few $1,000s sitting in it. And yet, when you try to calculate in your head how many more years you actually have to work, the number that comes back doesn't feel right. It feels too long, like you did everything you were supposed to do and somehow still ended up at the wrong destination. My name is Daniel, and I've been sitting with that feeling for a while, not in a pessimistic way, but in a curious one. Because when something doesn't add up, it usually means there's a rule somewhere that nobody told you about. Here's what I mean. Most people treat their financial life as a series of income problems. If I just made more money, I could save more. If I got that promotion, I could start investing. If my salary crossed a certain threshold, then things would finally click into place. And I understand that logic. It feels true. But the strange thing is, when you actually look at the data, income explains almost nothing about when someone gets to stop working. What explains almost everything is something far more boring and far more powerful. It's the ratio between what you keep and what you spend. That ratio, your savings rate, is the actual engine underneath all of this. And once you understand why, it rewires how you see every financial decision you make. Think about it this way. If you spend every dollar you earn, you can never retire, no matter the salary. The math is just arithmetic. You need money to replace money, and if you're consuming everything you produce, there's nothing left to do the replacing. But flip to the other end. If you somehow lived on half your income and saved the other half, you'd be financially free in roughly 17 years, not because of some trick, but because of simple compounding logic. Every dollar saved does two things at once. It grows your future pile while simultaneously shrinking the pile you need to live on. The lever pushes from both sides, which means the difference between saving 10% of your income versus 25% isn't a 15% difference in outcome. It's closer to 20 years of your life. That's not a rounding error. That's the whole game. Now, I want to be clear about something before we go further. I'm not here to tell you to stop buying things you love or live in a van by the river. The most interesting part of this whole conversation isn't about deprivation at all. It's about the fact that a meaningful amount of your savings rate is already being quietly drained by structures you set up once and never looked at again. And changing them costs nothing, $0. Not a course, not a financial advisor, not a premium subscription. Just a few intentional settings that the system was hoping you'd never revisit. Start with where your money sits right now. If you have a savings account at one of the major national banks, and the odds are decent that you do, you're probably earning somewhere around 0.01% annually on that balance. Not 1%, not half a percent, 1/100th%. On $10,000, that's about $1 a year in interest. Meanwhile, high-yield savings accounts at FDIC-insured online banks are currently paying somewhere in the range of 4 to 5% on the same money, the same federal guarantee, the same liquidity, the same dollar. The only difference is the institution holding it. So why does this gap exist? Mostly because the bank you opened your first account with, probably in college or right after, earns your loyalty through inertia. The account is already there, your direct deposit already lands in it, switching feels like a chore, and so most people never do. That assumption that your laziness is a reliable asset is literally priced into the bank's business model, and the bank isn't wrong, but you can be the exception in about 20 minutes. Now, while you're in that benefits portal, and if you subscribe here, you're clearly someone who takes this stuff seriously, there's something else worth looking at. If your employer offers a 401k match and you're not capturing the full amount, you are doing something genuinely unusual. You are declining free money. The typical formula is something like the employer matches 50 cents for every dollar you put in, up to 6% of your salary.
So if you contribute 6%, you get another 3% on top of it, an instant 50% return before a single market movement happens. No hedge fund, no day trading strategy, no speculative asset class delivers a guaranteed 50% return. But a significant chunk of workers are still leaving that match unclaimed every year, not because they don't want it, but because the enrollment process is buried, the forms are confusing, and the default contribution rate the company sets is often low enough to miss the threshold. The people designing these systems know that complexity reduces participation. That's not a coincidence. But here's where I want to spend a little more time, because this is the piece that's genuinely invisible in a way the others aren't. Inside your retirement account, right now, there are probably multiple funds you could invest in. And most people pick something that sounds reasonable. Maybe a target date fund, maybe whatever was pre-selected when they enrolled. What almost nobody checks is the expense ratio on that fund. That tiny decimal, 0.5%, 1%, sometimes higher, gets silently pulled from your investment returns every single year before the statement is generated, before you ever see a number. You never write a check for it. There's no invoice. It's just gone. And the compounding effect of that missing fraction is staggering. The difference between a fund charging 1% annually and one charging 0.05% over 30 years on a $100,000 investment can be somewhere north of $200,000. That's money you earned in a market you were exposed to that just quietly left. And the funds with the higher fees, study after study shows they don't outperform the cheap ones in the long run. The S&P 500, tracked by a basic index fund with an expense ratio that sometimes looks like a typo, beats the majority of actively managed funds over a 15-year period. Every 401k menu has at least one of these index funds. It usually has a boring name. It's usually on page 3. Move your balance into it, and you've just given yourself a raise that compounds silently in your favor for the rest of your working life. The fourth move is the one that genuinely surprised me when I first dug into it, and I say this as someone who reads tax code for fun. It's the Health Savings Account, the HSA. Most people with one use it like a prepaid medical card. Money goes in, money goes out to cover copays. But if you have a high-deductible health plan and you're doing it that way, you're using a Ferrari to go to the mailbox. The real play is this. You contribute to the HSA, you invest the balance in index funds inside the account, and you pay your smaller medical bills out of pocket while saving every receipt. There's no time limit on reimbursing yourself from an HSA. That urgent care visit from 2026 can be reimbursed in 2041, tax-free, after the money has been compounding for 15 years. The account is triple advantaged. Contributions are pre-tax, growth is tax-free, and qualified withdrawals are tax-free. No other account in the American tax code offers all three simultaneously. Your 401k taxes you on the way out. Your Roth taxes you on the way in. The HSA, used correctly, taxes you never. So what does all of this actually add up to if you put them together? Consider a household making the U.S. median income somewhere around $83,000 combined. If they follow the standard path, contribute just enough to get the partial match, leave the money in a mid-fee fund, keep savings in a big bank account earning almost nothing, and ignore the HSA, their effective savings rate lands around 9%. At that rate, they're looking at about 33 years of work. Start at 28, retire at 61. Now run the same household with the same income through these 4 switches: full 401k contribution capturing the complete match, an index fund at 0.05%, a high-yield savings account, and a maxed-out HSA used as a long-term investment vehicle. Their savings rate climbs toward 30%. That same table puts them at financial independence around age 54 or 55. Same salary, same house, same family. The only variable is which defaults they chose to accept. And before anyone points out the obvious, yes, most of this money is locked in retirement accounts until you're 59 and a half. There is an answer to that, and it's not a loophole. It's just a provision in the tax code most people never hear about. It's called a Roth conversion ladder. The year you stop working, your income drops dramatically, which means you're suddenly in a very low tax bracket. You convert 1 year's worth of living expenses from your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, paying minimal tax on the conversion. 5 years later, those converted funds come out completely penalty-free and tax-free at any age. You just need 5 years of bridge savings to cover the gap while the first conversion seasons, which, if you've been doing the rest of these things, you already have. I want to close with something that doesn't get said enough in this space. None of this information is hidden in any dramatic sense. It's in the tax code, it's on government websites, it's in your benefits portal right now. What's actually happening is quieter than hiding. It's just the absence of anyone telling you clearly, because the institutions you deal with daily are optimized for their own returns, not yours.
The bank doesn't email you about the competitor offering 4% because why would it? The 401k administrator doesn't push you toward the cheapest fund because the expensive ones fund the marketing budget. There's no villain in this story. There's just an incentive structure that was designed before you arrived and will keep running until you step out of it. And stepping out costs nothing. That's the strange part. The thing between you and potentially a decade of your life is an hour of paperwork. If this reframed anything for you, share it with someone who still uses the same bank they opened at 19. And subscribe if you want to keep pulling on these threads together. There's more underneath. Now, here's something I genuinely want to know. What's the one financial setting in your life you've been meaning to change but just haven't gotten around to yet? Drop it below. I read more of these than people expect.